Yesterday, the general fund budget was passed by lawmakers. As promised, Governor Robert Bentley vetoed the budget. Attorneys spent most of the day picking jurors for this case, and late this afternoon, a jury was struck. These are the agencies we keep talking about: Medicaid, law enforcement, mental health. Alabama House of Representatives decided to meet one more time today for a workday. The last of our three-part sit-down with the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Alabama, George Beck. We hear about another issue in the state. That's right, Ben. We're expecting multiple announcements to be made. Like you said, we don't know exactly what they are. Once there, Representative Steve Klaus told me he does expect some changes to be made. Just this afternoon, Bobby Snellgrove's son, Mark Snellgrove, took the stand. Today, Governor Robert Bentley took matters into his own hands. Earlier this morning, the Confederate flag was removed from state capitol grounds. Roy Kitts also told me that today there shouldn't have been that many complaints just because a lot of businesses were closed. Just last week, Dothan Pediatrics started reaching out to parents of patients to tell our local legislators this is not a good idea. Attorney General Luther Strange and Governor Robert Bentley called this the best possible settlement. Coming up on WDHN News at 6, we'll bring you a more personal side of this story. I'm live on Fort Rucker, Jasmina, Alston, WDHN News. Governor Robert Bentley calls the Deepwater Horizon oil spill the worst environmental disaster in United States history, one that directly impacted the state's Gulf Coast 5 years ago.
About 100 miles off of our coast, it killed 11 people. It caused oil to continuously flow for months.
The environmental and economic damages Alabama experienced were significant.
5 years ago, there were no cars on the road in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach area and Dauphin Island. No one was in the restaurants. There was total despair.
But 5 years later, a sigh of relief.
Today, we are here to announce that the state of Alabama has reached an agreement in principle to settle its lawsuit with BP for the significant damages caused by the Deepwater Horizon oil spill.
The total value of the agreement in principle is about $18.5 billion for all of the affected Gulf states and for their economic losses and natural resource damages.
Alabama's share, including some of the money that we've already received, Alabama's share is over $2.3 billion.
Attorney General Luther Strange and Governor Robert Bentley called this the best possible settlement for the state of Alabama. The money will be paid over the next 18 years and is divided into two parts. $1.3 billion will go towards environmental damage. The other $1 billion will go to economic losses and into the state's general fund.
This money will help the general fund, but it is not the solution to our problem.
Attorney General Luther Strange has been involved with this case since 2011. This particular agreement only relates to the state of Alabama's claims against BP.
In coming back and having them try to fix this, we're hopeful that this type of thing is done, and now we can really focus on the issue and get the problem solved.
The problem is Alabama's general fund budget crisis, and one of the most talked about solutions has dealt with funding cuts to state agencies, including Medicaid.
Half of deliveries of babies are covered by Alabama Medicaid, and about 40% of children in Alabama are covered by Alabama Medicaid. Those numbers are very much the same here in our community.
Dr. Michael Ramsey practices at Dothan Pediatrics and is no stranger to politics, especially when it comes to Medicaid and the importance he says it has. So when lawmakers began considering a budget that would impact it, he was only one of many who took action.
So we ended up sending over 10,000 letters from our clinic to various lawmakers in Montgomery, so we were really proud of that. We lost track of the number of phone calls, so that was very effective.
We followed the clinic's progress since they started, but Dr. Ramsey says the work isn't done yet. The state now has no budget, and the legislature will get called in for a special session to once again try and fix this problem.
And we're going to try to get in touch with lawmakers while they're on the break and just make sure that they understand really how important it is.
He says their message so far has gotten out, and even though the outcome wasn't as expected, he is hopeful it will work in their favor. Stolen identities, a large issue according to the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Alabama, one that just 2 years ago made the state the #2 spot in the country for identity theft as related to tax refunds. But through vigorous prosecution, Alabama is now down to 15 in the nation, which George Beck says is not good, yet shows some progress.
We've had a special task force from Washington to come down, lawyers who have specialized in tax fraud and we've done a great job in that.
Still, the work is not done, especially as more and more people become vulnerable to having their identity taken.
One of our biggest cases involved stealing the identity, Social Security number of high school students. Well, they're generally not vulnerable, but they don't file tax returns, so it takes a while.
Other similar cases have happened here as well. Hospital employees stealing patient records or prisoners' identities taken.
There's no limit anymore as to where these people can steal these identities and put them in the black market and use them to steal, whether it's taxes or credit cards or anything else.
Skimming devices on gas pumps have become more common as well, even right here in our area.
Most of the gasoline companies, are reputable ones, are trying to vigilantly protect that, but it can, as I understand it, someone can put one of those on at a moment's notice.
While the state is working to crack down on these realities, Beck says it's important to look out for yourself as well and be aware of what may or may not be true.
If it's credit card, go to your credit card companies, your banks. If it's a tax, immediately notify someone, either IRS or your state tax people.